Since its conception, the state of South Carolina, its republic, and its citizens have endured many a challenge for maintaining its unique identity and body politic. The significant emotional and stressful events of our past have impacted our history and our future. It has been my attempt through this book and site to provide a true, accurate, and historical account of South Carolina's struggle to maintain its identity and Republican-style social compact after ratifying the Constitution of the United States in 1789. I now invite you to read my book, The Nation of South Carolina, and determine for yourself this state's industrious history and its challenges of the past. One may ask, why is it important today to discuss a state's identity and its particular style of social compact? It is rather simple in definition, but quickly becomes complex once put into perspective with historical events of our American experience. To know one's identity, one must first know one's own history. Once that history is known, it can be placed into perspective to other historical events or facts surrounding its identity and that of its neighbors. One's identity, the state, can be defined into two separate but related thoughts: sovereignty and the state's own social compact, known as a republic. To diminish either of these related thoughts destroys one's identity and its basis, both historically and factually. To have an in-depth analysis of the original intent behind states' rights and the United States Constitution, one must recognize this true, accurate, and historical account of one's identity, and that identity's relationship to its neighbors. Further, one must review the words of the Constitution from this accurate and historical perspective, rather than one which is skewed or misrepresented. Only by understanding the terms of sovereignty and republic in their true definitions can one determine where the rights of the states is guaranteed, or where the state agreed to restrict itself, and further, where the individual citizen's rights originate. Only by recognizing these two thoughts and their basis can one put into proper perspective rational terms such as social impacts, society, statehood, citizenry, allegiance, obligations, commitments, and the words and phrases found within the Constitution as originally understood or currently being interpreted. Only then can one see the purposes, goals, and objectives of why the Constitution was written and agreed upon by the various states as members. Only by understanding the different governmental structures as originally designed and intended can individual citizens exercise their rights to restrict the degree or powers exercised over or upon them by these governmental bodies, both within their individual states and that of the federal government. Only by understanding these original structures can we, the citizenry, identify impacts which have been skewed or misrepresented. This ultimately affects our current individual lives and the concepts for which we rebelled against England in the 1700s to achieve. Concepts such as freedom from and liberty to have been replaced by concepts of controlling influence, nationalization, and democratic representation. Again, without recognizing the terms sovereignty and republic, their definitions and ownerships, can we put into perspective these relational terms for which all governmental bodies rest. If for any reason, immediately or over time, these two words, sovereignty or republic, and their meanings alter or change, then the foundation and understanding of the American Constitution, as it is written, alters and changes, and the identity of the state and its republic diminishes. Ultimately, this lack of understanding has led to whether one feels they are a subject to a governmental body over them or an active participant with an agreed upon body politic and its particular style of social compact and structure. The American Constitution is the guarantee agreed upon to define the governmental structures known as the federal government or the Union of the States, and that of the survivability of those governmental bodies or republics known as the members to it, these being the state legislatures or individual member states and their citizens. Without this guarantee, the Union of States, its governmental structure, and the terms and conditions written within the Constitution may become mute or replaced by application of incorrect terms, definitions, or interpretations. And if this does or has occurred, what replaces it does not represent the original intent or the original guarantees to the state legislative bodies or to the citizens of those states. This then raises the question of whether we are better off today than we were under the original intent, understanding, or agreement. And if I should say we, who then is the we for which I am referring? Is the we the original social compact of each republic and its citizens, or has it been redefined into a different meaning or understanding, such as one national homogeneous society? And if so, does this not affect the very survivability of the republic status for which the American Constitution, as designed and written, was to guarantee to each state and its citizens as members? Has the state lost its identity and status because of this redefining? One may ask, why is it important today to understand the differences, and are we better off under the current understanding and application of our governmental policies over us than if we went back into time and to a different understanding than that which is being applied today? The book you are about to read establishes the historical facts behind original intent. It establishes for one state, South Carolina, its legitimate claim as being the only sovereign, as a body politic and final arbiter. It defines its original social compact that evolved into its own unique original body politic, and then its relationship with the other states. It clearly shows its only desire from its conception was to be free, sovereign, and independent as a body politic or republic, nothing more or less to be construed. The book further establishes the historical facts behind the creation of associations between South Carolina and its neighbors, the other states and their citizens. From the origins of the Articles of Association of 1774 through the Articles of Confederation of 1778, and finally into South Carolina's relationships with the other states in the Constitution of the United States of 1789. The book shows how these relationships were revised only by the act of individual state legislatures or governing bodies as sovereign entities, and South Carolina's drive for self-preservation and economy of resources through cooperation and interaction with its neighbors. The book provides evidence of falsehoods, misrepresentations, sophistications, and verbal jugglery to twist historical facts, altering or changing original intent to what we understand today as the foundation of our political system and sovereign identity. These acts of, by individuals, political party agendas, and individual branches of the federal government have strayed us away from original intent to the question of whether we are better off today politically than we were originally, and if we wanted to return to original intent, could we? One cannot project the future, until they understand the successes and failures of their past. This book does not define the freedoms from control or influence, or the liberties to express one's convictions or beliefs. It only defines the foundation of the past, how it evolved, and for at least one state, from original intent to its relationship with the other states through the 1700s and 1800s. It defines how its sovereignty was earned and how it was stolen or misconstrued as being given or decreed away. It defines the strife it felt as major emotional and stressful events occurred and decisions made. It defines how the advent of political party affiliations and governmental policies replaced citizens' view of their individual state legislative bodies and representation within the political arena and their own status as citizens. It defines relational terms such as sovereignty, republic, citizenry, democratic and republican-style social compacts, allegiance, commitments, and others to show how the threat of political party majority through the use of purse and sword has subjugated these body politics and their citizens into accepting terms and conditions detrimental or destructive to their very survivability. It shows this redefining and definitions which forced the state of South Carolina away from this agreement, which was created originally to foster and protect the state and its citizens. It further defines how, over time, this final arbitration in what is good for its own citizens or sovereign status of the state has been decreed away from the state or republic's ownership to the federal or national ownership. This book does not define how to reverse the past, only how the acts of produce the future in which we now live, and whether I or we feel subjugated to accept acts for which we feel are detrimental or destructive to our moral convictions or beliefs, and our desires for a better and more secure posterity. Finally, it does not define the governmental body that is to protect and serve our social compact's combined interests, or I ask, does it? From which governmental body do we have direct input versus being limited in participation? Under original intent, we had direct representation into all aspects within our state legislative, executive, and judicial processes, as we, the citizens of the state, defined them. For under our republic, they the state are us and we are them. Only through the state legislators do we have direct representation into all aspects of the federal government. Only through our state legislators can we modify or change our relationship with the other states and their citizens. Under the original structure, the citizenry of the state's social compact or republic set the agendas, goals, aspirations, and interests for its republic within its territorial boundaries and its participation within the federal government. Today, this is not true, as the state legislators have been diluted down by party platforms and national agendas. These party affiliations now dictate their own interests and aspirations over that of the citizens' republic and the federal participation. Party interests and aspirations over time have transcended territorial boundaries of these republics, making one homogeneous social society of all the republics, effectively nullifying the interests and aspirations of the state, its legislators, and its citizens as originally guaranteed within the Constitution. Today, the preamble of the Constitution is interpreted as meaning for this homogeneous society rather than for its individual state members. This book addresses South Carolina's attempt to exercise its sovereign right and final arbitration during the climatic years and events of 1860 and its political, governmental, and social outcome since that attempt. In closure, I ask one last question. If you know who you are and your republic's history, and someone wishes to tell you otherwise, does this raise bells and whistles in your mind? I invite you to read my book and decide for yourself what has transpired affecting the state of South Carolina, its citizenry, and possibly your own state and your individual status as citizens of that state.